All right, good morning, everyone. Today, Daniel 11 is our chapter. This chapter continues his vision that he had in chapter 10. And this chapter covers quite a bit of prophecy, which is now history, of course. It's about 375 years that it covers. It's a remarkable prophecy about different empires or countries. One is Persia, then Greece, which is Alexander the Great, then Egypt and Syria, which are the two of the areas we're going to concentrate on. Remember, when Alexander died, his empire was broken up into four different areas, and Egypt and Syria were the two biggest, and that was the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. Those were the two, and I'm going to show you a map of that in a second. But this chapter starts off with the first verse, in the first year of Darius the Mede. So that pinpoints us as to when this was written. And you've seen this chart before, showing the kings of Persia. And Darius the Mede was with Cyrus the Great. Remember, they ended the Babylonian Empire on the night of the handwriting on the wall, and Darius came in with Cyrus and defeated the Babylonians that night. So here we are with the year we're talking about. It's about 539 BC is when his first year is. It's the first year of Darius the Mede. So one thing about this chapter is it's got a lot of remarkable details in it. We're going to see that as we move through the chapter, particularly about how Alexander's empire was broken up, how there was a lot of struggle between those four, and eventually it's defeated, of course, by the Romans. But it starts off with a lot of detailed history, which a lot of the secular historians claim this was all written after all that happened. So that would put it around, 100 BC or something down in there. But we know it as prophecy, and that's the way Daniel wrote it. He didn't write it in 100 or 200 BC. He wrote it in 539 BC. And it just comes down to the point where, do you believe the Bible? Because verse 1 says he's written this in the first year of Darius. Or do you believe historians who say it was written later? So we believe the Bible. So that's when this was written. And when he wrote it, it was prophecy. As we read through it now, it's our history. We see that. It's all happened. The only piece that hasn't happened yet is at the end of the chapter is the Great Tribulation. And we'll see that, when we get there. So, but for now, that's where we're going with this. Notice in verse 2, it says, behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia. So we're going to count these kings. And if on my chart here, you see Cyrus the Great. So it says 3 more. So the next one is Cambyses, then Darius the Great, then Xerxes. Well, this count is off because the verse goes on to say, the 4th will gain far more riches than all of them. Well, the 4th is supposed to be Xerxes, or Ahasuerus, as mentioned in the Bible, not Artaxerxes, because Xerxes was the most powerful. Xerxes is also the king in the movie The 300 that came to try to defeat Greece. So it can't be Xerxes. So there's something missing. And we've got another list of kings right there. A little hard to read, but you can see Cyrus over on the far, on the chart, it'd be your far left in orange, and then Cambyses, And then there's the third one is stuck in there, and that's Bardiya. And then you get to Darius. So there's the four. And the verse reads, there's three, and then the fourth one is the most powerful, and that will be Xerxes. So that's how we do the count. Okay, so moving through that, in verses 3 and 4 is Alexander. And I've got a couple maps for Alexander. You can see on the map, the green part was the Seleucids. They had one of the biggest areas. And the second biggest is the purple part, which is Egypt or the Ptolemies. And those are the two we're talking about in our chapter. The other two that took over part are way up there, Macedonia. They're way off, and they were smaller. So we're talking about those, and that's starting in verse 3 and 4. It mentions a mighty king will arise, and he will rule with great authority. This is Alexander. But as soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 points of the compass. And that of course, is his generals who take over those 4 points. Okay, so verses 5 through 20 is our history that we're going to see of how these empires had a lot of warfare going on and ended up the way they ended up. Let's see, verses 21 through 35, we're going to read about Antiochus Epiphanes. We've read about him before. He's basically a prototype of the Antichrist, which will be in the Great Tribulation. And then verses 36 through 45 to the end of the chapter is about the Antichrist in the Great Tribulation. We will notice in verses 5 through 20 that Daniel does predict or prophesy with a long struggle between these two enormous empires. The kings of the north, as you'll hear in our verses, and the kings of the south, that's who we're talking about. The king of the north is the Seleucids in the green, and the kings of the south is the Ptolemies in the purple. I think I have one other map. I lost it. Oh well, it's the computer, not me. Okay. Finally, one interesting point is in verse 17, about halfway down, it says, he will also give him the daughter of women to ruin it, but she will not stand for him or be on his side. So Antiochus the third, that is not Antiochus Epiphanes, he was the fourth. So Antiochus the third gives his daughter in marriage to the Ptolemies, trying to bring together the two empires and make them stronger. So he gives him the daughter to do that. And it says, she will not take a stand for him. In other words, once she married this other fellow, her loyalty went with the other guy, not her father. And that's what that verse is talking about. And interestingly enough, her name was Cleopatra. And there was some things I read that she was the Cleopatra we all know from the movies, but it's not. There's a lot of women whose name was Cleopatra. It's a pretty common name. This is not that Cleopatra. But it was interesting to note some of the things I read thought it was the one from the movies. Of course, they hadn't made the movie by the time this was all written, so not her. Okay. I think I got it all. So let me get started. I'm going to start with verse 1 of Daniel chapter 11. In the first year of Darius the Mede, I arose to be an encouragement and a protection for him. And now I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia. Then a fourth will gain far more riches than all of them. As soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the realm of Greece. And a mighty king will arise, and he will rule with great authority and do as he pleases. But as soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out toward the 4 points of the compass. Though not to his own descendants, nor according to his authority which he wielded. For his sovereignty will be uprooted and given to others besides them. Then the king of the south will grow strong, along with one of his princes, who will gain ascendancy over him and obtain dominion. His domain will be a greater dominion indeed. After some years they will form an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to carry out a peaceful arrangement. But she will not retain her position of power, nor will he remain with his power. But she will be given up along with those who brought her in, and the one who sired her, as well as he who supported her in those times. But one of the descendants of her line will arise in his place, and he will come against their army and enter the fortress of the king of the north, and he will deal with them and display great strength. Also their God, with their metal images and their precious vessels of silver and gold, he will take into captivity to Egypt, and he on his part will refrain from attacking the king of the north for some years. Then the latter will enter the realm of the king of the south, but will return to his own land. His sons will mobilize and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow and pass through, that he may again wage war up to his very fortress. The king of the south will be enraged and go forth and fight with the king of the north. Then the latter will raise a great multitude, but that multitude will be given to the hand of the former. When the multitude is carried away, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cause tens of thousands to fall, yet he will not prevail. For the king of the north will again raise a greater multitude than the former, and after an interval of some years, he will press on with a great army and much equipment. Now in those times, many will rise up against the king of the south. The violent ones among your people will also lift themselves up in order to fulfill the vision, but they will fall down. Then the king of the north will come, cast up a siege ramp, and capture a well-fortified city, and the forces of the south will not stand their ground, not even their choicest troops, for there will be no strength to make a stand. But he who comes against him will do as he pleases, and no one will be able to withstand him. He will also stay for a time in the beautiful land, with destruction in his hand. He will set his face to come with the power of his whole kingdom, bringing with him a proposal of peace, which he will put into effect. He will also give him the daughter of women to ruin it, but she will not take a stand for him or be on his side. Then he will turn his face to the coastlands and capture many, but a commander will put a stop to his scorn against him. Moreover, he will repay him for his scorn. So he will turn his face toward the fortress of his own land, but he will stumble and fall and be found no more. Then in his place one will arise who will send an oppressor through the jewel of his kingdom. Yet within a few days he will be shattered, though not in anger nor in battle. In his place a despicable person will arise, on whom the honor of kingship has not been conferred, but he will come in a time of tranquility and seize the kingdom by intrigue. The overflowing forces be flooded away before him and shattered, and also the prince of the covenant. After an alliance is made with him, he will practice deception, and he will go up and gain power with a small force of people. In a time of tranquility, he will enter the richest parts of the realm, and he will accomplish what his fathers never did, nor his ancestors. He will distribute plunder, booty, and possessions among them. He will devise his schemes against strongholds, but only for a time. He will stir up his strength and courage against the king of the south with a large army. So the king of the south will mobilize an extremely large and mighty army for war. But he will not stand, for schemes will be devised against him. Those who eat his choice food will destroy him, and his army will overflow, but many will fall down slain. As for both kings, their hearts will be intent on evil, and they will speak lies to each other at the same table. But it will not succeed, for the end is still to come at the appointed time. Then he will return to his land with much plunder, but his heart will be set against the holy covenant, and he will take action and then return to his own land. At the appointed time, he will return and come into the south. But this last time, it will not turn out the way it did before. For ships of Kittim will come against him. Therefore, he will be disheartened and will return and will become enraged at the holy covenant and take action. So he will come back and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. Forces from him will arise, desecrate the sanctuary fortress, and do away with the regular sacrifice. And they will set up the abomination of desolation. By smooth words he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly toward the covenant. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action. Those who have insight among the people will give understanding to the many, yet they will fall by the sword and by flame, by captivity and by plunder for many days. Now when they fall, they will be granted a little help, and many will join with them in hypocrisy. Some of those who have insight will fall in order to refine, purge, and make them pure until the end of time, because it is still to come at the appointed time. Then the king will do as he pleases, and he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will speak monstrous things against the God of gods. And he will prosper until the indignation is finished. For that which is decreed will be done. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers, or for the desire of women, nor will he show regard for any other god, for he will magnify himself above them all. But instead he will honor a God of fortresses, a God whom his fathers did not know. He will honor him with gold, silver, costly stones, and treasures. He will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. He will give great honor to those who acknowledge him, and will cause them to rule the many, and will parcel out land for a price. At the end time, the king of the south will collide with him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships. And he will enter countries, overflow them, and pass through. He will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall. But these will be rescued out of his hand, Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. Then he will stretch out his hand against other countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. But he will gain control over the hidden treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. The Libyans and the Ethiopians will follow at his heels. But rumors from the east and from the north will disturb him, and he will go forth with great wrath to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch the tents of his royal pavilion between the seas and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him.